105 The Game presents the Midday Tailgate. Join former Gator pitcher Jeff Cardozo and Gator play-by-play announcer Adam Schick.
As we start the tailgate, the game in Oakland just ended, by the way.
Oh.
19 innings last night. The Marlins and Mets actually went 15 innings. And then later on that night, obviously way later since it's on the West Coast, they go 19 innings.
What's your longest? Do you know?
Can't think of it.
No.
I want to say, that's what I was going to ask you. What's the longest, well, I try and figure out, what's the longest you've played in and the longest you've called?
16 and 15 I've called. 15 this year, 16 last year. Playing was 14.
Wow.
So
see, but for a pitcher, that doesn't really count.
Sit around and do nothing anyway.
So was it even a day you were pitching, or did you just sit there?
Midweek game. So that made it bad because you got to get up and go to class the next day. But other than that, just by that time you get, and obviously knowing my personality, when it gets to the 11th or 12th inning, I'm just goofing off and trying to light fire on people's shoes, throwing bubbles on their hats, doing all these things just to stay entertained because it's boring. And for even for a broadcaster, it's tough because you're not really conditioned, but you're so used to maybe going 9 and talking a certain amount, and all of a sudden it's an extra hour and a half or something. And you're like, man, I got to suck down some more waters. And then you got to run to the you-know-what.
Well, and then you end up like Marv Albert on Saturday. I don't know if you heard about this. It was actually pretty funny. It was during the start of the third overtime between Chicago and Brooklyn. And they came out of a timeout, and all of a sudden Steve Kerr was doing play-by-play. For an extended, he was doing it for like 5-6 minutes.
You had to go.
And it was just bizarre because you don't know what happened, because on TV that never happens. You rarely ever see the play-by-play guy disappear, especially if it's Marv Albert. It's noticeable. So it was funny on Twitter. There were lots of theories about what happened. I chimed in. He probably was searching for his toupee that had fallen off. Thank you. But I think he had to go. 3 overtimes, and all of a sudden Steve Kerr's doing play-by-play. It was an amateur broadcast, to say the least.
Marv's not a young man anymore, so he can't make it through a 4-hour
Marv had to go
game,
after the first quarter, and he held it all the way till then, so that was probably impressive on him. He might deserve an up for that actually. True. We've seen oftentimes in sports drama, when guys go to a new environment, they're under different management, they're in a new city. Yeah, a lot of times they can get inspired, and it's a different energy, and it affects the way the guys play.
Name the last time that happened, because when I look at
A.J. Burnett. It happened this year with A.J. Burnett. Was garbage in New York. He goes to the Pirates, and all of a sudden he's outstanding.
I don't think he's outstanding. You put him in the top 10 pitchers in the National League?
This year, probably.
You guy might win the Cy Young there, Rob.
Well, I think he's a B-plus starter. He's not an ace. He's not a frontline guy.
He may be, but he was a D-minus guy in New York, and a change of scenery did him a whole lot of good.
Maybe he's the exception to the rule, but I remember when the Yankees signed Johnson away from Arizona, and he came in there, gave him a bunch of money, and money didn't solve anything because he busted. And there's more busts out there than A.J. Burnett. The best you could come up with your example is A.J. Burnett. Come on, man. That guy's a bum. He's having an okay season this year, and that's because that team has been revitalized. They're starting to put some talent on the field, but he's not the sole reason they turned around.
No, but he's certainly, but he is an example. It's pretty hard to deny he's a really good example of a guy who was garbage, had to change his scenery, and became a different guy. So we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see, Ron. Ron, we got to go. Thank you so much for the call. We appreciate it. My second down goes to Bobby Valentine. No. My second down goes to Sacred Heart because they hired Bobby Valentine to be their new athletic director. What could possibly go wrong? The guy has zero experience in administration or college athletics, has been a general nuisance everywhere he's gone that wasn't in Japan, and just finished a disastrous stint as the one-year manager of the Boston Red Sox. This makes no sense. It's a shameful, shameful grab for attention, and both parties should be chastised for this happening. This is just a horrible idea from top to bottom.
I just don't see a background there. How does he know how to run everything?
No idea.
Yes, and that's the problem.
It's to get one headline for one day that happened a week ago, and now they're just going to have all negative things happen from here on out because of it.
Make a name for yourself, and imagine being the baseball coach there.
Good luck dealing with that phone call every day. Their goal is to stop playing FCS opponents and to start phasing those games out. There's obviously still some of the schedule through the next couple years, but the idea is by the 2015-2016 year, somewhere around then, they get to the point where the Big Ten is no longer playing paycheck games at the start of the year. And I think that's great. It's something we should see across college football. We talk about it all the time. As expensive as tickets are today and as difficult as it is oftentimes to get to games and to take in the experience, you want to make sure that you're getting a product that's worthwhile. And people we've seen, and it's shown across the country, just don't care about automatic wins. You only have 12 games of the year to play for football. And people don't want 2 of those to be walkovers that have absolutely no competitive element to them. This is a really good step by the Big Ten, and I hope more conferences, specifically the SEC, will follow suit, because I think the fans deserve a better brand of football and more chances to see competitive games throughout the season.
I agree.
But
I agree the fans deserve it, because, you don't want to pay all that money for a crappy game, and that was evident this past year here at Florida.
They don't want to watch a crap. Yeah. Forget about paying for it. People don't want to watch it, period.
But you've got to look at it from the other side, too. Those crappy teams need games like this. Like the check they get from the University of Florida pays for their entire athletic season. So they need stuff like that to cover all this. So you can't really – you're now going to hurt – these lesser schools, so to speak, and they're not going to get these paychecks. I mean, those teams realize and understand that they're going to get their brains beat in, but they're getting a check to help themselves out. And the way that I look at it, the Big Ten is doing that because they need to do that. The SEC doesn't need to do that. Big Ten needs a harder strength of schedule, so they're saying, okay, well, if we want to get into this national title game or at least into the playoffs, we've got to now show, because we're a crappy conference, that we need to get better wins from certain people. So it's helping them out. It's not like they're saying, oh, man, I don't care about those smaller schools. I don't want to beat their brains in. They're doing it out of a necessity is what I think.
And I can appreciate that, but I think ultimately your number one responsibility has to be to your fans. And while it's nice that the paycheck games do help these smaller programs, that can't be the primary concern of an SEC school or of a Big Ten school. You have to look at your product, what you're putting on the field first and foremost. Here's a good compromise, I feel like.
Okay.
Keep a paycheck game, but have it be an exhibition. Have it be an exhibition game to start the year, and that way you're not taking up one of the 12 precious weeks to see a good competitive college football game with nonsense. This way, they get their check, you're supporting them, and heck, it's even an opportunity for you to get more fans in the stands. You're not going to have a sellout and make as much money, but I think it's more appropriate for the kind of game that you're putting on.
But why would a school do that?
Well, why wouldn't they do that? That's an extra week to have your stadium open, to sell concessions, to sell tickets.
Because then you're shelling out all this money for a game that doesn't mean anything, and you're not going to even come close to making what you would during a regular week.
Still an opportunity to see college football, and we know that people will going to take any opportunity they can to see that.
What happens if Jeff Driscoll breaks his ankle on the first play of an exhibition game against a crappy team? That means nothing. That'll never happen.
We have preseason football. You can make the same exact argument on preseason NFL football, and it's still there. It's 4 games worth.
That's not college, though.
Still. The idea is more games. Everybody wants more games right now. They want more games in the NFL. They want more games in college because they want to generate more revenue. That's the way to do it in college, to satisfy these smaller schools, to create another opportunity to open your stadium. I'm not saying it's going to happen. Sure. I don't think it will. But I think it's a good way to solve that problem of keeping those smaller programs going with paycheck games while also not taking away from your ability to give your fans what they want throughout the course of the season.